What made you nope out of a friendship? I had known someone for years. We used to be office mates when we were grad students. We used to have great fun hanging out. We'd host and cook for each other, sip beers, watch DVDs, and chat until 3 or 4 in the morning about all sorts of crap. I'm a guy. She was a lesbian. It just didn't matter to me. We got on really well. She left the country for a while to work somewhere else. About a year after she left, I went to London for a friend's birthday party. And my old friend was there. Out of the blue, no warning. I was amazed and assumed she just turned up that night as a surprise for everyone, but no. It turned out she'd left her job overseas and had actually been back in the country for 6 weeks, and simply hadn't told me. Bless her. I was shocked. There was literally no way I would have reciprocated that sort of distancing behavior if the shoe had been on the other foot. I believed we were friends. Well, I believed we were pretty good friends. So, experimentally, I stopped making any effort from my side to stay in touch with her, and I haven't heard a thing from her since that very night. As soon as I stopped trying, boom. It turned out the other party wasn't trying at all. So basically the friendship was like a plant he kept watering, and as soon as he stopped, it turned out it was plastic. Ouch. Story 2. My kidneys failed. They healed up, then I got a funny-looking lab test a few months later. I told a friend, I think my kidneys are failing again. She sighed loudly and said, "And? What's that to me?" She'd just been complaining about her stupid, lazy coworkers for about half an hour, but she couldn't bother to listen to me. That was the last time I talked to her. My kidneys were okay, though. Story 3. When I was 11, my dad ended it all, and it was incredibly hard on me. Not only because I was a child, but also I was incredibly close to my dad and didn't know what to do without him. I didn't go to school for like a month, and when I did come back, my best friend at the time invited me to sleep over at her house. I went, thinking it would help, but I was still in that grieving stage where it was extremely difficult for me. Her parents, bless their hearts, were incredibly patient with me and overall just very kind. My friend, not so much. At the time, nobody knew what happened to my dad other than that he passed away. Nobody but my family knew he ended himself. I only knew because I demanded my mom to tell me what happened. I already had a suspicion that was the case. He was a drinker who would confide in me a little too much as a child. Somehow it got out, and everyone at school knew, but I didn't know that anyone else knew. We were playing Mario Party in our Wii when she just randomly said, "Is it true that your dad hung himself?" I was so shocked and angry that I didn't know what to say. I just remember saying, "I think I want to go home." With her response being, "Why are you still sad about it? It's been a month." And then I grabbed all my things and left without a word. She ended up telling people I cried the entire time at her house, which I remember her getting crap from that from my friends who knew my dad for a long time. I haven't spoken to her since. We follow each other on social media, but other than that, we don't speak. I'm still bothered, 10 years later, by how she acted about it. Story 4. This girl wanted to hang out and immediately invited me to a passion party, which I Googled and came to the misunderstanding that it was a party where people bring their toys to show everybody. It sounded super weird, and I didn't know how I felt. I just kind of ghosted her. Later, I realized passion parties are an MLM scheme, the which was trying to sell crap. Nobody brings used toys. I can only imagine what would have happened if I brought mine. Story 5. My boyfriend and I had an argument one night, and I was incredibly upset over it. So my sister invited me to come over to her house for the night because she and her friends were having a party. My sister is 8 years older than me, so I didn't see an issue hanging out with a bunch of 28 to 34-year-olds at the time. My boyfriend also knew about it, and he thought it would be a good idea for both of us to see friends or family for the night, to have some space, and we'd talk when we were both in a better mindset. My sister failed to inform me that the party was starting out as a passion party. She thought that if I knew about it, I wouldn't have agreed to come. There's absolutely nothing weirder than talking about toys and tasting flavored stuff with your older sister and all her friends, many of which I've known since I was a child. I do, however, regret not buying that orange creamsicle flavored stuff, though. Story 6. He was a user. His family had cut him off and cut him out. I'd driven him to rehab twice. The last time he got out of rehab, he had nowhere to go, so I said he could move in with me until he could find somewhere to live. Things were going well for him. Out of the blue, I got called away for work. I was gone for a week. When I got back, everything in my apartment was gone, except for my guitar, which was my great-grandfather's and grandfather's before it was mine. At least he left me that. Never heard from him again. He's gone now. Story 7. She was flying to Ireland to meet some guy she'd become friends with online and wanted me to come with her so she wouldn't be alone on the flight. I said, sure, why not? I love traveling, and I also don't want you to get harmed. The guy turned out to be both real and very nice, but She spent the entire time we were there putting me down in front of him to look cool. I didn't even like the guy. I was living with my boyfriend, but she was so threatened for some reason. By the second day of getting mocked relentlessly, I was like, screw it, and spent the rest of the trip exploring Dublin on my own. Once we got home, she and I had a conversation where I basically told her I don't think either of us thought that went well, and never talked to her again. Story 8. Took me years to notice because she showed me affection and encouraged me, telling me I need to be more confident. On the other hand, she loved to make fun of me, loved to hear about unpleasant things that happened to me, and I loved to make jokes about people I cared about. She loved to gossip. It was pretty subtle, just a joke. My ex brought it to attention how he doesn't like her because she's mean. He gave examples of her treatment of other mutual female friends. She made jokes about their insecurities while in public, or just talking aloud about things people were self-conscious about. If you feel bad about your acne, she would start talking about it at the party around other people. She would say how good you would look even though your skin is getting worse, but don't worry about it. It matters that you're a good person on the inside. It would help if you started eating healthy. You eat too much cheese. She would not care your crush was there or that comments like that at social events are just weird. After noticing her attitude, it felt uncomfortable being around her anymore. Story 9. She invited this guy she was chatting with to come hang out with us one day. She had a long-term boyfriend. Well, I was newly single. This guy and I really hit it off, so we started to spend more time together. When she found out, she got so mad. She told me that I stole my backup guy. Her boyfriend dumped her shortly after, and she demanded I stop talking to him so that she could start dating him as she had previously planned, insisting that he was her soulmate. I stopped talking to her instead, and so did he. That was 20 years ago, and we're still together. 15 years of marriage and 2 kids. Yes, he wasn't her soulmate after all. Story 10. I'm a therapist, and my ex-friend of 15 years took so much advantage of me and my knowledge. It got better when she got into actual therapy, where she made lots of progress and improvements. But every time we hung out, she'd only focus on her progress in therapy. I tell her all the time I'm not there for case management. I wanted a friend, and she'd give me maybe 15 minutes of space to talk about me before hijacking the conversation and always going back to her and her life. I started having issues in my own life and wanted a friend, but every time I reached out for support, she'd tell me she was busy and committed to other events or people and she could pencil me in weeks from the moment of crisis I was in. I snapped. I literally canceled paying clients to go support her in her moments. I reflected on the years of friendship, realizing she was never there for me. I threw her so many parties. I provided so many supportive moments for her. I rescued her over and over and over again where she was never there for me or saw me. I broke up with her almost a year ago. I'm still having moments of feelings or thoughts or regrets or emotions and wanted to let her know all the things and how much she sucks. But I'm seeing it's not worth it. I'm trying to use my energy towards myself and thankfulness for the amazing friends and support people I do have. They're all lovely and true friends. Story 11. This was many years ago. I was still in high school, so somewhere around 94, I had this surplus waterproof ammo can that I liked. It was spun aluminum. I kept loose change in it. I suppose it probably had about $60 worth of change. I showed it to my buddy when he stayed at my house overnight because I thought the can was cool. In the morning, my dad was giving him a ride home. I noticed that the can was gone. I said to my friend, "Did you see where the ammo can went?" He said, "No." I said, "Did you take it?" He said, "No." I said, "If you need the money, you can keep the money. I just want the can." I ran away to my dad's car and left. I never trusted the guy again. My parents still talk to him sometimes. I refuse to. I want my can back. It's not like it was that expensive. It was just a weird thing that you can't buy anymore. Keep in mind that this friend also had me transport substances for him unknowingly, and that didn't bug me as much as the stupid ammo can. Story 12. There was a guy I met in college who was one of the funniest individuals I've ever met in my life. He was super quick, and his humor was insanely in sync with mine. We had all these plans. We were going to do some projects together. One day we were in one of our classes and I noticed he had a flag pin on his jacket. I said to him, "What's with the pin? Is it like a nautical thing?" To me, it looked like the flags you would see on a Swatch watch. You know, the kind that they hang from the boat in yachting. So he replies, "Oh, that's a South African flag." I'm a little bit suspicious, so I asked him cautiously, "Oh, are you from South Africa?" And he says, "No, but I really admire the country. I really know how to keep them in their place." I reply with, "Oh, man, we can't hang out anymore." He looked at me and asked incredulously, "What, because I don't like black people and you don't want to hang out anymore?" To which I replied, "Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell." And never spoke a single word to that dude ever again. Story 13. A combination of things, honestly. I'd get extremely anxious if I was told he was hanging out with the rest of us because he wanted things to go exactly as he planned, and he'd be upset if it wasn't. He'd usually end up pinning the blame on me and then constantly joke throughout the entire time about how I screwed things up, and I just had to go along with it. He'd constantly flake on everyone without saying a word, but if you had to cancel on him, he'd get extremely upset at you. One of my friends used the exact same excuse on him that he'd typically use on us after the fact, and he got mad. His family was pretty well off, while the rest of our families were working-class families. He expected us to spend money as if we had the same amount of money his family did. He'd get upset if you didn't. He felt like he had the right to monitor all of my social media accounts and to bring up comments made on said social media accounts as he wished. He'd bring up Reddit comments I made anonymously because I didn't feel comfortable talking about those topics in real life. On sites where I'd have my actual name or face attached to them, he'd wait for me to post anything and then make snarky, unfunny comments for the sole purpose of making me look bad. I ended up having to block him on everything and deleting that Reddit account. Whenever we'd play games together, if he was more skilled than I was, he'd make jokes about how bad I was and how I couldn't do anything right, which were really just thinly veiled insults. If I got upset, he'd tell me to calm down because he was only joking. I ended that friendship after 7 years, but it honestly ended 6 years later that it should have. Sounds like this guy's superpower is being a professional schmuck. Like, he could probably get paid for that. Story 14. I was dating a girl who was increasingly argumentative or unstable. One night she went through my Facebook messages and found a chat from like 4 years prior where I was telling a friend that I was going on a hot date and started an argument about it. It was the dumbest argument I've ever been in. By the end of the argument, she said we need to break up. Getting real sick of the constant arguing, I agreed. When I agreed, she barricaded herself in my bathroom and threatened to call the police, saying me and my roommates mistreated her unless we got back together. I agreed to get back together and told her we should cool off and see each other the next day. Thankfully, she went home. I went to her place to break up the next day with my phone recording the conversation and kept my voice calm and level. When I ended the relationship, she said she was going to call the police to accuse me and my roommates of mistreating her. I asked, why would you make that up and ruin 3 people's lives over a lie? And she answered something like, you might not have actually done it, but leaving me hurts worse than that ever could, and you don't deserve a good life. At this point, I knew I had some kind of protection legally since she admitted to making up the allegations she threatened. So I told her it's over, and to please not contact me anymore. She chased me out of her apartment, throwing things at me and hitting me on the way to my car, saying she's calling the police when I pull off. Thankfully, her mom was there and she said she'd vouch for me if she said I hit her. She only hit me when I left her room. I told her I recorded the entire conversation and had called a lawyer before I came over. This was enough to scare her out of making the false allegations. Over the next few weeks, I had my windshield wipers stolen 5 times, trash thrown on my balcony, and dozens of increasingly manipulative and angry texts sent to me that I didn't respond to. Didn't block her so I could save the texts. Moved to a new apartment, got a new car, not because of her. Hail damage totaled my previous one. Got an order of protection against her. She really taught me a lot about red flags. Lol. Story 15. I was mistreated and she really was with me through it all. She was my best friend. She held me at my lowest and was overall what I thought was a decent person. She let me get it all out when I found out he was blackmailing people to be on his side in the trial and when he was following me. I lost the trial due to blackmail and no get done, and of course, she gloated and she comforted me a lot. A year later, she called me and came clean. She testified for him and helped him get dirt on all the people that were going to testify for me and that she was sorry, but she did not think he needed to go to jail because he was young and made a mistake. I dumped her like she was hot. Story 16. Guy was a close friend of mine for more than a decade. All through high school, college, and her early 20s, they were friends, roommates, and practically brothers. One day he casually drops a comment that he'd knocked the girl up. I started to congratulate him on his impending fatherhood, but he cut me off with a, nah, screw her. I'm not ready to be a dad yet. If she wants to have the kid, she can raise it herself. A decade plus of friendship ended that afternoon. Well, good riddance. Story 17. Back in high school, my best friend, let's call her Olga, and I had a crush on the same guy. Let's call him Sam. Sam was a flirt and was playing both of us without us knowing. Eventually, one day, he chose Olga to ask out and cut ties with me. As a good friend, I didn't make a big fuss about it, and although I was heartbroken, I respected their relationship. Olga was from an extremely Christian family, so she was not allowed to date in high school, which meant she had to keep her new relationship a secret. One day after school, I was home minding my business when Olga's mom showed up at my house. She was angry and was screaming at my mom, saying I was a lesbian and had corrupted her daughter. I had no idea why she was freaking out, as I had done nothing. Come to find out, my best friend was making out with Sam and he left her a huge hickey in her neck. She tried to hide it from her family, but they eventually found out and demanded to ask her where she got it. And this girl had the audacity, more like stupidity, to say that I had done that to her, that it bit her neck. Yeah, as if that makes it any better. Her mom, of course, thought this meant we were lesbians and came to my house to confront me and out me to my mom. I've never laughed so damn hard in my life when the mom told me the story. And my best friend left me no choice but to let her mom in on her secret relationship with this douche. After that, I never talked to her again, and everyone in the school eventually found out, which left her with a horrible reputation. Funny thing is, because Sam didn't choose me, literally a week later, I met the guy who is now my fiancé. We've been together 7 years and will be getting married fall of 2023. Story 18. She had a crush on a guy friend of mine. No biggie there. Plenty of my friends have dated each other. We were hanging out one day, and I went to change my son's diaper and left my cell on the table next to her. When I come back, she randomly says she's got to go and leaves. Okay, sure. I grab my phone and it's open to texts between me and that particular guy friend. I didn't have a password at the time. It scrolled back pretty far, too. I called her out on it. She said she just wanted to make sure he and I were really platonic friends and he and I didn't have a thing going on. She could have just asked. Nope, right out of that one. We weren't in high school. We're in our 30s. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 19. I legit couldn't believe a thing he said anymore. He would constantly make up medical conditions that he apparently had. He would make up conversations he had with his doctor that would justify anything he said. Pretty sure he faked having cancer and faked going through chemo. The only medical condition I think he may have had is schizophrenia, just based on the number of absurd and unbelievable stories he would tell me about people following him or random people coming to him on the street to tell him he was a piece of crap human. He would tell me a story like that every day. But according to him, he couldn't have schizophrenia because his doctor diagnosed him with it and gave him medication for it that put him in a coma, so in his mind that was proof he didn't have it. He became weirdly obsessed with the idea of a romantic relationship with me, to the point where he said he was going to transition to being a woman so we could be together, because he knew I wasn't gay. Never mind the fact that I explicitly told him that I wasn't interested in being a romantic relationship with him. Oh, and I was, still am, married to my wife, who I had started dating 7 years earlier. My wife and I are very committed to each other and very happy together. We don't have an open relationship or anything like that. He would repeatedly accuse me of hacking his computer to steal the video game he was making. Not that I would have any interest in that or even the skill set to hack a personal computer. To be fair, I think his mom would tell him that I was doing that. He also would yell at me randomly for telling his mom I didn't want to be friends with him anymore, which I never did. So I think she was poisoning our friendship for some reason. We knew each other since we were children, but as we grew older, he never grew up mentally. He never had a job in his life. He never finished high school. He just lived with his mom and they smoked together all day, every day. To be clear, in a vacuum, I don't have a problem with people smoking, but if you become dependent on it and lack all motivation to properly take care of yourself, I think it becomes a problem. I wouldn't put it past him to stalk my profile. He knows my username, so Cody, if you're reading this, please get help. I care about you, but I can't be friends with you in your current condition. Story 20. We'd been friends since middle school, but I was always the odd one out. My jokes were never funny, my opinion never mattered. I was constantly made fun of and I felt lesser when I was with them. Fast forward to when I was 20 to 21 years old and I tried catching up with them again. Obviously, I'd already matured in a lot of areas and was not the same person I was in middle school. They kept treating me the same way as all those years ago. I tried to put limits, but they just kept treating me as a lesser one of their groups. I gave them the benefit of the doubt and noticed that whenever I was individually with just one of them at a time, they treated me with dignity and well, but whenever it was all of us together, they straight up changed their behavior and treated me like crap. At last, I got tired of feeling like crap. Since in all my other life areas, I felt pretty good, and just stopped talking to them and responding to their messages. Of course, they accused me of being a bad friend, but honestly, I don't care. My life has made a 180 turn since then, and I don't intend to allow friends or people that treat me like crap into my life anymore. Screw them. Story 21. He just never helps himself, and it got too draining. 95% of all his life's problems are his fault and entirely within his power to fix, but he doesn't ever fix them. I'm tired of trying to help and watch him destroy his future. Hey man, you're good with money. Think you could help me figure out some stuff? I'm struggling and want to get things under control. Sure. First step is admitting you have trouble. Let's get together this weekend over a few beers and I'll teach you the basics of personal finance and we'll figure out a budget for you. You just need to stick with it. He never showed up to my place that weekend. Instead, I get a text. Hey, sorry man, I bought a new gaming PC and had to get it set up. Dude, this thing is so awesome and it only cost me $50 a month for 48 months. Didn't you just tell me you were struggling? Why are you taking on more debt? Did you even need a new PC? Well, no, but it was such a good deal I couldn't pass it up. It was on sale for $1,500 or $50 a month for 48 months. $50 a month is nothing. So you're paying an extra $900, 60% over the sale price for a PC you didn't need while you were already struggling. Come on, man, if I wanted a lecture, I'd call my parents. I needed this to give me a break. Besides, you built a new PC last year. Un said. Yes, but I have $0 in debt besides my mortgage. I budgeted for 3 months to be able to afford it without financing, and my PC was 8 years old and well due for a replacement or overhaul. Sorry, Pat. I can't watch you fire yourself in the foot over and over and over again like this, and then listen to you complain about life all the time. You have the life you want because you keep choosing the life you have. Story 22. I had a friend, N, who never really had a personality of her own. It always swayed to whoever she was hanging out with or dating at the time. Had always been pretty liberal in the years I knew her, until she started dating a Glenn Beck-loving guy. Like, this dude seriously hero worships Beck. It's weird. Anyway, he seemed like a decent enough guy. They accidentally got pregnant early in the relationship, so she terminated the pregnancy. No judgment, you do you, boo. Then a few years later got pregnant again and kept that baby. She didn't work, but he had a decent job and supported them best he could, but they smoked a ton of weed and cigarettes, and so oftentimes would bum those or money for necessities because they would overspend frequently. And she got pregnant a third time and was going to terminate that pregnancy as well, but couldn't afford it. I'd offered to loan money. My boyfriend at the time offered money. They had literally nothing to contribute themselves because they owed their guy hundreds of dollars. By the time they had mooched enough for the termination, it was past the point they could. Mind you, she had no prenatal care that entire time. About 5 months along, because she wasn't planning on keeping him. It started to drift a bit after that kid turned 4. I was working crazy hours, bought a house with my now husband, etc., and we mostly communicated through Facebook. One day, she shared a post about how horrible Planned Parenthood was and the horrific things they do when they perform terminations, and I just couldn't take it anymore. She got government assistance for years, Medicaid, food stamps, the works. I constantly trashed others on social media for doing the same, and I could ignore it, but the termination post, knowing she had one and was going to have a second, broke me. I simply posted, pot, meat kettle, and blocked her. It's been over a decade, and from mutual friends, I've learned she hasn't changed a bit. Story 23. Best friend and I were going to move in together. We'd bought supplies and gotten things ready. The night before we were actually moving in, he called. Told me he had rented another place without me that day. Went through petty disagreements we had had, and then listed every single thing he thought was wrong with me. He even hit on the very private and vulnerable things I'd confided to him. I was heartbroken. Came out of nowhere. I didn't have any idea. A couple of days later, and for a while after, he reached out to apologize. He wanted to live on his own, for understandable reasons, but made it my fault so he didn't feel guilty about not realizing this and discussing it with me. He was sorry about everything he said and said he didn't mean any of it, but I wasn't interested in having anything to do with him anymore. Kinda broke me. It's been almost 20 years and I've never had a best friend since. I'm not really sure anyone actually likes me or if they're keeping a mental list of all my flaws and will eventually name them while telling me what they really think of me. Story 24. Going out for lunch at school. Walking to the local bakery, he quickly runs off in front of us and buys every single sausage roll the bakery has. Like 30 freaking sausage rolls. Puts them all in his bag, basically leaving nothing for us apart from the more expensive food. Sausage rolls were like 25p each. Other similar sized foods were about £1 each. After this, we started going to the bakery in the next town over. It took the full lunch break walking at a good speed just to get there and back, but the guy was super fit. He tried to come with us 2 or 3 times, and every time he couldn't keep up with our power walking and fell behind, meaning he had to go back to school alone without dinner. We were the only friends he had, and he was heavily pestered. Kind of feel bad for doing that to him, but he did it to himself by depriving the group of food for no reason whatsoever. Story 25. We met through a mutual friend. Hung out twice. He then tried to force me to quit my job and take a week-long vacation in Mexico with him. When I said no, he got mad at me. Ranted about money doesn't matter and then told me that poor people are lame. Little more depth on his character. Super rich kid. Parents spoiled him. Duh. Hangs out at clubs 5 nights a week. Paying for 2 different girls' as apartments. Has no friends because he uses his money to force people to do whatever he tells them. Story 26. She was very controlling. I wasn't a 1D superfan, but I liked some of their music. She got angry with me because of that and told me we could only be friends if I listened to cool music like Slipknot and Rammstein. So I did it just to please her. She didn't attend school for some time and came back. She always asked people in her class who I was talking to when she was absent. She would get angry if she heard I spent a lot of time with a specific person when she was gone. When my social battery was down and all I wanted was to sit in a corner and read, she would get emotional and cry over me not paying attention to her 24/7. It was exhausting, especially for an introverted person. She would really enjoy watching me draw. She bought herself a sketchbook and told me to draw in it from now on. I was drawing in her sketchbook. She would get sad if I drew something in my sketchbooks for me, which is a pretty big deal if you're an artist, and art is literally the only way you express yourself. I would even say she was a bit obsessed with my drawing. She always asked for more, and she would beg me to give her one of my sketchbooks because she felt like the drawing I was putting in hers was not good enough. I ended up giving her one of my sketchbooks that I spent months in finishing. She loved it so much, she carried it with her to school every day of the week. When I remembered I had some pretty important sketches left there, I begged her to let me quickly photograph them for future reference. She got offended. I literally had to beg. I hated the way she made me feel, but I also knew she had pretty neglectful parents. So I decided to fake it till I make it to college and leave her on a positive note. I am in college now. She is too. Not so long ago, she called me and told me that I'm the only good thing in her life and she was thinking of ending herself. I was the only reason she pushed through and keeps pushing through. I feel awful. Story 27. She told me in my face that she saw me as competition. She was obsessed with surpassing me in many things. I stopped talking to her about my life years before I cut her out because I knew what she did to people who cut her out. Anyway, any conversation with her for a while was surface level and she wouldn't really care about anything I tell her. She told me in my face that she called the boss of one of her exes because she wanted to influence his workplace. I saw her ruin art projects in art school for students she didn't like. She would do temper tantrums to her roommates instead of having normal discussions. She was a walking red flag and would betray a lot of people. What made me do the last move and block her everywhere was when I told her I was a bit more distant lately because my mom was diagnosed with cancer. My mom would always open her home to her when she would have problems at her home when we were teens. She didn't care. She didn't even ask me if I was okay. She continued talking about her obsession about the Olympics as if I said nothing. I was her only remaining friend and she would not listen to her therapists and social workers. I'm worried for her still, but I've blocked her everywhere ever since for my own safety. Her life is probably miserable, but she dug her own grave. Story 28. He was a religious dude and always felt the need to warn people that they were going to hell for their various sins. Saving and converting was big for the church he belonged to. It was annoying when he did it to me, for not accepting Jesus as my savior. But when I found out he was going around telling gay people that they were going to burn, I just lost it. I wouldn't speak to him after that. Dude couldn't even figure out why. Later on, a mutual male friend told me he'd been propositioned by this person at around the same time this all went down. So it turned out he wasn't only a schmuck, but a hypocritical schmuck as well. Story 29. Dude got really aggressive with a friend of mine when she rejected his help with a problem she was having with her boyfriend. Went from, I'll sort him out for you if he ever touches you, to, I'll mess you both up, you stuck-up witch. And she didn't want any of his crap. When my girlfriend and I tried to get him to back down, he threw my girlfriend against a wall and threatened to put me through a window before I managed to talk him down. Dude was a bouncer and easily twice the size of any other two of us combined. The girls both made a run for it while I basically told him, you're going to have to go through me if you want to go after them. And I know I can't stop you if you decide that's the way you want this to play out, but there are a dozen witnesses here and I absolutely will be pressing charges. I was convinced he was going to flatten me. Fortunately, it didn't go that way. It was a total Mr. Hyde moment. I'd never seen him act like that all toward anyone before, but that was the end of his relationship with basically everyone in their circle of friends. No one would speak to him again after that. Story 30. I had a dear friend from school I hadn't seen in a couple years. She moved out of state, plus the whole pandemic thing. We met up for dinner a couple months ago and she kept talking about her spiritual advisor, who she was meeting for a weekly session and who was helping her become psychic or something. She tried convincing me that she could communicate with her cats telepathically and that I could too. I tried to make a joke like, whenever my cat does something dumb like fall off the couch, I call him a dumb idiot. And my friend was like, oh no, he can understand you. So yeah, I don't know what happened to her, but she seemed to have gone off the deep end. My husband and I giggled about it later and even tested our psychic abilities by offering our cat 1,000 treats if he stood up. He did not. Well, maybe he just didn't want 1,000 treats. Story 31. She cheated on her fiancé with 2 different guys, and to avoid consequences, she falsely accused both of them of mistreatment. Know this for a fact. She'd quit going to college classes and her job a few weeks before and told her mom, who was paying for it, that the mistreatments were the reason why. Eye-opening experience. I told her mom the truth and told my now ex-friend to never contact me again. It helped me realize that I was always a friend to her and she was never a friend to me anyway. Something my actual friends had tried to tell me several times. Story 32. My best friend's partner, both guys, wanted me gone for the moment they got together 15 years ago. Tried to get rid of me in every way possible. Creating an inhospitable atmosphere, forgetting to invite me to certain parties, telling my friend that I wasn't to be trusted and had ulterior motives. accusing me of having done and said things to him that I never had said or done, pushed me out of being my friend's best man at their wedding because he forgot that had already asked his own friends to serve as witnesses, and never were there any repercussions. My friend kept defending this behavior as not really meaning anything. Then, when I was going through a rather dark period and needed the support of my friend, his now husband actively tried to undermine the support he gave me, which ended up really damaging my mental health. I finally exploded in anger at the guy and stepped away from the friendship. That was 3 years ago. I permanently ended their friendship a week ago, shortly after my now former best friend, after years of them fighting it out amongst each other and the husband apparently having realized what he had done, tried to convince me that I should be the one to reach out to his husband because he still doesn't trust you. And it was just too difficult for the guy to reach out to me or make any step towards mending things. I let that sink in real deep, and then said my goodbyes. Story 33. My friend used to go through my room and just borrowed what she wanted. She was a serial dater and constantly looking for new accessories. One day, she goes into my jewelry box and takes 3 diamond rings out and wears them and just loses them at some guy's house. Of course, she can't remember which one. A month later, she tells me that this happened and she'll be able to pay for them. She didn't even ask if she could borrow them. Thank goodness they were fake, but my dad did give them to me. There's no way she would be able to pay me back. No one in her whole friend group would let her stay the night. She did similar things to all of them. Story 34. Me and one of my best friends at the time got into an argument in the phone about something small. So small I don't even remember what. I made a comment about how he wanted to hang out every single day when I was the only one in our friend group with a car, but as soon as he got his car, it had been 2 weeks and he didn't want to hang out once. So I said something to the effect that I was just his friendly taxi. He was intoxicated and he just said, "Tell Danielle," my girlfriend at the time, "that I'm done helping plan your surprise birthday party." I never even apologized once he was sober. A few months later, we tried to hang out again, but it was different. He started turning into the new friends he hung out with, and I didn't like him anymore. Story 35. I had a friend who offered me a job at the start of the lockdown. She was my closest pal, and I thought it would be fun to see her at work. Although we maintained a professional workplace vibe, it was fun for a while. Flash forward around a year. It was my birthday, and I'd requested the day off to go hiking with my husband. 2 days before my birthday, she changed the schedule so she could take a 4-day weekend to go on a road trip. I was shocked. Not only did she specifically change the schedule with barely any notice, she scheduled me for my birthday and dropped out on her best friend's birthday. I gave a few months' notice, letting her know I wouldn't be working there after the summer. Immediate coldness. We haven't spoken since. Story 36. Watched her repeat the same pattern of rushing into something with a new guy when things with the old one had barely ended. The latest time it was someone I had previously dated, been intimate with, and had some reservations about. I let her know my concerns about him, but told her I'm not going to tell a grown woman who to date. Then she started canceling her plans last minute, saying she'd reschedule but never reaching out. Constantly posting on IG her lunches, dinners, etc. with other people. It was pretty obvious she had no interest in keeping me in her life anymore, so block, delete, move on. It sucks to see a multi-decade friendship end, but upon reflection, I'm not the first close female friend she's ditched after latching onto a new guy. It was just my turn to get the cold shoulder. At least I won't have to play therapist when this relationship goes to crap too. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.